Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be on immunology, specifically on the immune system and the human body defences. So this first video is going to be for AQA GCSE, so this is for Biology, Foundation and Higher, as well as Combined Sciences, Synergy and Trilogy. So our specification points apply to all of the AQA GCSE specifications, and these are: number 1, to explain the role of the immune system in the defence against disease. If a pathogen enters the body, the immune system tries to destroy the pathogen. Number 2, white blood cells help to defend against pathogens by phagocytosis, antibody production and antitoxin production. So first we're going to discuss what a pathogen actually is. So a pathogen is a disease-causing virus, bacteria, fungi or protist which can affect animals and plants. And so, for example, bacteria, now these are small living cells, so these are approximately 1/100th size of body cells, and they reproduce rapidly inside the body, and the way that they cause illness is by damaging cells and also by producing toxins. And then we have viruses, and these are even smaller, these are tiny, these are about 1/100th size of a bacterium, and they are not classed as cells, and these cause illness by cell damage. So what happens is the viruses replicate by invading host cells, and they use the machinery that the cell has in order to produce many copies of themselves. So then when the cell bursts, it releases all these new viruses, and this is what causes illness. So the basic role of the immune system is to defend against disease. So when a pathogen enters the body, the immune system's role is ultimately to destroy it and prevent illness. And so this way you don't always need medication in order to help destroy the virus, and you don't always need to go to the doctors, and sometimes you don't even get symptoms. So white blood cells, also called white cells, are really important in actually defending against the pathogen. So their free defense roles include actually engulfing the pathogen, and this is by a process called phagocytosis, and they also produce antibodies and antitoxins. There are two main types of white blood cell that you need to know about, and these are phagocytes and lymphocytes. So the process of phagocytosis is when phagocytes engulf the foreign cells or pathogens and digest them. So this begins with the phagocyte leaving the blood, and this occurs by it squeezing through capillaries, and then it enters the tissues that are being attacked by the invading pathogen. So once the phagocyte has entered the tissue that's being invaded by the pathogen, it actually moves towards the pathogen, and then it releases cytoplasm which surrounds it before it becomes enclosed in a vacuole within the white blood cell, and then the pathogen can be killed and digested by the white blood cell. So the second way that white blood cells help to defend against pathogens is by antibody production. So each pathogen that invades the cell has a unique molecule on its surface, and this is a protein called an antigen. And lymphocytes, which are another type of white blood cell, recognise this antigen, and this allows them to recognise that the molecule is in fact foreign and it is invading, and this allows them to produce antibodies, which are another type of protein, which destroy pathogens. So the first stage is the lymphocytes recognising this foreign antigen on the invading pathogen. So once the lymphocytes have recognised the antigen and recognised the molecule as an invading pathogen, they then rapidly reproduce to make many specific antibodies. So these have a variety of roles. So the first one is causing cell lysis. So this is when pathogens burst. And the second is when lymphocytes bind to the pathogen and kill them. And the final one is the lymphocytes covering the pathogens, causing them to stick together to then go on to be destroyed. So once this occurs, phagocytes then ingest the pathogen. Now, if the individual is invaded with the same pathogen again, the lymphocytes will be able to immediately rapidly produce the correct antibodies to kill it, because they can remember this specific antigen. So this is what is termed as immunity. So the person is now naturally immune to this specific pathogen, and if the pathogen infects them again, they won't get sick and they won't show any symptoms due to the rapid response of the lymphocytes. So the third way that white blood cells help to defend against pathogens is by antitoxin production. So pathogens cause illness due to toxins that they release into our cells. So the lymphocytes produce antitoxins which neutralize or counteract the toxins that are produced by the pathogen. So as you can see here, we've got our cell and we've got the pathogen within the cell that's producing a toxin. So then we've got our white blood cell, which is specifically a lymphocyte, which is producing an antitoxin in effort to neutralize the toxin produced by the pathogen. So the antitoxin produced by the white blood cell, by the lymphocyte, combines with the toxin, and this makes a safe chemical. So the antitoxins are also very specific. They're specific to a particular toxin, just like antibodies are specific to a particular antigen. So we've got toxin A, which means we've got antitoxin A. So it's specific to that toxin. So now we're going to move on to some questions based on that information. So question 1, white blood cells protect the body against pathogens such as bacteria and viruses. Pathogens make us feel ill. Give one reason why. So we know there is in fact two main reasons why pathogens make us feel ill. So one is that they produce toxins, and another is that they damage our cells. So you could have either one of those points as shown in our answer here. Question 2. White blood cells produce antibodies. This is one way white blood cells protect us against pathogens. Give two other ways that white blood cells protect us against pathogens. So we know, as we said in the previous question, that pathogens produce toxins and they also damage our cells. So two ways that white blood cells protect us is by producing antitoxins to counteract the toxins produced by these pathogens, and also by engulfing the pathogens in order to destroy them. And you can see our answer there. Question 3. People infected with a small number of TB bacteria often do not develop the disease. Explain as fully as you can how the body defends itself against the TB bacteria. So for this question, we need to think about the three ways that white blood cells defend against pathogens. So the first way we know is that white blood cells actually engulf the pathogen. The second is by producing antibodies to destroy the pathogen, and the third is by producing antitoxins which counteract the toxins or the poisons produced by the pathogen. And we can see our answers here. Question 4. In this question, you will be assessed on using good English, organising information clearly, and using specialist terms where appropriate. White blood cells are part of the immune system. White blood cells help the body to defend itself against pathogens. Describe how pathogens cause infections and describe how the immune system defends the body against these pathogens. So for this question, we could say that bacteria and viruses are both pathogens because these are the two that we need to know. And we could say that they both reproduce rapidly inside of cells within the body. So we know that bacteria actually produce toxins, and this is what makes us feel ill, whereas viruses live and reproduce inside cells, causing damage. So then the way that the white blood cells help to defend against these pathogens is by engulfing the pathogens, or we could say the bacteria and viruses, and also by therefore destroying the pathogen, bacteria and viruses. And they also produce antibodies, which we know destroys the particular pathogen, and also antitoxins, which counteracts the toxins released by these pathogens. And therefore, this leads to immunity from that specific pathogen. And we can see all the key points and also the level descriptions there. So our next specification point is for all of the specifications apart from the combined sciences synergy. So the point you need to know for these specific specifications are that students be able to describe the non-specific defence system of the human body against pathogens, including the skin, nose, trachea and bronchi, and the stomach. So our first non-specific defence is actually the skin. Now the skin protects a lot of the body from physical damage, infection and dehydration. And the outer layer actually consists of dry and dead cells. And because of these cells, this means that pathogens cannot easily get inside of the skin into the body. And also the skin has sebaceous glands which produce antimicrobial oils which kills any microbes that do find a way to get into the skin. So platelets, which are cell fragments in the blood, play an important part in defending the body against pathogens when the skin is cut or grazed. So platelets actually start the clotting process at wound sites, and then clots dry and they form scabs, and this is what forms a barrier preventing pathogens entering the body through this site of injury, and this occurs while the skin is healing. The nose also plays an important part in defending the human body against pathogens, and within the nose are hairs, and these trap larger microbes and dust particles that you breathe in constantly. The trachea and bronchi are also part of the non-specific defence system. So these have ciliated epithelium linings. So cilia are tiny little hair structures, and they beat together in a wave-like movement which moves mucus to the back of the throat, where it is then coughed out or is swallowed into the stomach. So these ciliated cells have a lot of mitochondria because they need the energy to perform this action. So the mucus itself is actually produced by cells called goblet cells, and this is in the epithelium. So mucus then traps the smaller dust particles and the microbes in order for them to be released. So the final component of the non-specific defence system is the stomach, and the stomach produces hydrochloric acid, and this acid is a pH of 2, and it's this acid that actually kills the majority of pathogens that enter via the mouth and travel down the esophagus, the food pipe, into the stomach. So now we're going to move on to some questions based on that information. So question 1, microorganisms cause infections. The human body has many ways of defending itself against microorganisms. Describe 2 ways the body prevents the entry of microorganisms. So we could discuss any of the non-specific defences we've previously talked about. So we could say how the acid in stomach kills the pathogens that enter through our mouth, so in food, for example. We could talk about the skin forming a barrier and also producing antimicrobial secretions. Also the hairs and the nose trapping pathogens within particles. Also the trachea and bronchi having mucus which traps the pathogens, and also how the bronchi has cilia which wafts the mucus to the throat in order to be swallowed into the stomach to then be destroyed. So you can see some examples here. So this question is really good because there's lots of key examples we could put down. And finally, question 2. Draw one line from each blood component to its function. So we've got platelet, red blood cell and white blood cell. Now I know we haven't discussed red blood cells for this particular topic, but we have discussed platelets and white blood cells, so I thought this question would still be good practice. So then we've got some functions. So destroys microorganisms, helps the blood to clot, transports glucose around the body, transports oxygen around the body and transports urea. So if we have a look at platelet, so we know that platelets are involved in the blood clotting when the skin is cut in order to prevent microorganisms entering the body. So we know that platelet is going to join up to helping the blood to clot. We've then got red blood cell. So although we haven't discussed it, red blood cells actually transport oxygen around the body. So we can link those 2 up. And then white blood cells, we know of course destroy microorganisms, and this is because they engulf them. They also produce antibodies to destroy pathogens, as well as antitoxins to counteract toxins produced by these pathogens, and you can see our answer there. So thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you have enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss out on any videos. Also, please share with any friends or people you know that you think my channel could really help out. At the end of the day, I really just want to help as many people as I can to succeed and do well in their exams, and also teach them a little bit of interesting biology. Also, please head over to my Instagram, give me a follow, and my website, of course, where you'll be able to access lots of exam questions and revision resources. So I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!